Old friends, new friends, everyone else, what is going on? Welcome to another exciting edition of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening to the show, watching on YouTube, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you guys so much. A big shout out to today's sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. Great food, great vibes, drinks, brand new outdoor patio to take that place to yet another level. It's like you strapped a rocket to Sunny Reds. It's really taking off, man. Place to be. Go check them out if you haven't already. And of course, also Imperial Pizza, 2 locations, 1655 Main Street near Canisius College, and the South Buffalo staple at 1035 Aber Road. In my opinion, the best pizza in Buffalo, and without question, the best lunch special that you're going to get anywhere in Buffalo. Make sure you go to Imperial Pizza. All right, folks, this is our Friday episode, which means, as usual, it's our Podbag episode. This is where you control the narrative. It's your questions, your comments, your takes, the best of them. I plucked them from our YouTube channel, from my Twitter, a couple emails, and I respond to them. Primarily Buffalo Bills stuff, not all Bills, though. We do have a couple Sabres items and a few little fun topics as well submitted at the end. I love doing some non-sports stuff, but that will be for the very end of the show. So that's what we are doing today. A couple quick things here, and then we'll jam into some business. Yesterday, hopefully you caught the show. If you didn't, go back and watch it, listen to it. Well, at least if you are a fan of wings, if you live in Western New York, or you come up to Western New York and you love chicken wings, which is like most people, of course, make sure you check out yesterday's episode. I had Tommy Seifert from the Buffalo Wing Coalition with me, and I unveiled my annual, this year, 2025 wing rankings in tiers. And it was a lot of fun. 7 different tiers, 97 different wing spots. We pretty much hit on all of them. The Mount Rushmore, one change to it from last year, included in that. And not really a surprise if you know me, if you listen to the show, it wouldn't be a surprise. But yet again, 911 Tavern maintains a hold as the number 1 spot on my Mount Rushmore, which is cool. But there was actually some news, if you're a wing person anyway, some actual news to drop on Talking Buffalo yesterday. And that's the revelation that 911 Tavern is expanding. They're not relocating, they're expanding. They're going to knock down their wall. They're going to make the place bigger, bigger kitchen, bigger area, more seating. So the best is given even better. I cannot wait for that. And I did speak with the owner for a little bit on Thursday morning just to confirm everything before we started publicizing it. But yeah, so there you go. 911 Tavern. Many people think, especially me, is the best place for wings anywhere in Buffalo, is going to get even bigger, like physically, literally. So you got that. Also, we'll be talking about this for the next handful of weeks. MafiaCon 2 is coming to Buffalo on July 19th from 10:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. I was a part of this last year. I'll be a part of it again as well. It's at Seneca 1 this year. 1 Seneca. Last year, I can't remember where it was. It was really nice, but it was outside, and it was in the middle of summer, and it was just excruciatingly hot. Not going to be the case this year. It'll be inside. Seneca 1 will be nice and cool inside there. A bunch of podcasts, including this one. I'll announce who my guest is going to be, but I'll be doing a live show at 1 p.m. For this event. But plenty of podcasters are going to be there. Vendors, food, media personalities, exclusive items that'll be available for purchase, and autograph opportunities, I should say, because you got to get autograph tickets, just like you do for all these shows. But confirmed Buffalo Bills who will be there at MafiaCon 2, Maxwell Hairston, Dorian Strong, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Deion Walker, Jordan Hancock. Pretty much the entire rookie class is going to be there, as well as 2 guys from last year, Cole Bishop and Ray Davis. So if you're interested in that, it's a ticketed event. You got to get tickets. Go to buffalomafia.com get some tickets. Make sure you do that before it sells out. And I'm sure there'll be more guests and events to be announced here in the coming days. So just want to put that out there. And then in terms of the Buffalo Bills, minicamp wrapped up on Thursday. Quick little note, Maxwell Harrison did not practice, which was worrisome. But Brandon Beane did talk to the media after practice and said that it was a little bit of a hammy issue and that he expects him to be ready for training camp. In fact, he expects everybody who missed minicamp or was limited at minicamp because of injury to be good to go for training camp. And that includes Joey Bosa, of course, who didn't participate at all because of a calf injury. So really good news on the injury front for the Buffalo Bills. And on that note, let's jump into this pod bag for today. We'll start out with Alex Barber, who says, "Hey, Patrick, big fan, as you know. Allen said today at a press conference, today being Tuesday, by the way, his favorite Ralph Wilson Stadium memory was the Patriots wildcard game. I admit I find myself watching the highlights of that game over and over. To me, it was the best Bills game since the Frank Reich comeback. I think that performance by Allen tends to be underrated because it was followed by 13 seconds. Thoughts on that?" Oh, thank you very much for the compliment too, Alex, by the way. I love that game. That Patriots wildcard game, it was a perfect game. It was a perfect game for Josh Allen. It was a perfect game for the Bills offense. Like, statistically speaking, literally, it was a perfect game. Does it tend to be underrated, like you said? In a way, sure. I'll say this, were it not for 13 seconds, besides the obvious biggest fact that the Buffalo Bills probably go to the Super Bowl, Josh Allen's legend, as big as it is already, would be even bigger because he played literally perfect against the Patriots. He did everything a human being could ever do to win a game in Kansas City in the playoffs before the coaching and the defense blew it. Maybe they go to the Super Bowl that year, but sure. Underrated, maybe a little bit. Perfect game, fun to watch, 100%. Because earlier the Patriots beat Buffalo on Monday Night Football in that windstorm. I think it was 14-3 that game. So, I mean, there was a little bit of, the Bills were favored. They were expected to win that game, but there was a little bit of anxiety and worry that New England was a tough, physical type team. Even with a rookie quarterback that came into Buffalo and handled business earlier in the season. Didn't happen in that game, that's for damn sure. Remember that Micah Hyde interception too. It was incredible. But anyway, yeah, that's right up there for sure. You mentioned the Frank Reich game, the comeback game when the Bills were down 35-3. That's certainly right up there as well. Got to be honest with you though. I mean, you said stadium memory, so I guess technically I'm not. I guess that counts. I didn't watch the game. I didn't have a ticket for the game, and if you're old enough to remember, that game was blacked out locally. So if you weren't at the stadium, you didn't have some other kind of underground way to watch it, you didn't even see the game, at least not live anyway. So I can't really count that. Plus, if you said that, I would say, well, at least at Josh Allen. If Josh Allen against the Patriots is your favorite Highmark Stadium memory, I would surmise that you're probably young. Because to me, and again, both those games were very special for different reasons, but for me, it's not so much about a nail biter or a thrilling game per se when it comes to my favorite stadium memory, but it's got to be the AFC Championship game back in 1990. The Bills absolutely shellacked the Raiders 51-3. It was 41-3 at halftime. I'll never forget that game. The Bills came right down the field and scored. The Raiders answered with the field goal. You're like, well, strap it in. This might be a good one. Bills scored another touchdown. They scored another touchdown. They just dominated that game. It was 41-3 at half. You spent all of halftime and the entire second half literally knowing that the Buffalo Bills were about to go to the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. It was the best in-game, during-the-game party in the history of the Buffalo Bills because it was never, ever in doubt. So, nail-biter, thriller, nah. But 41-3 at the half, knowing you're about to go to your first Super Bowl. For me, personally, that was my favorite Highmark Stadium memory. All right, at Jazz Unlimited 1 says, I believe the Bills didn't address linebackers a ton, because they believe in their young depth already with Joe Andreessen and Olafosio. Now they sorted Spector's replacement with Shaq Thompson. That's my thoughts of what they're thinking for that room. You could be right. You could be right. Logic says that's what the Bills are thinking right now anyway. I'm not going to lie. This was something, talk about the linebackers here, that I had a lot of concern about. Not the starters. I mean, obviously the starters are solid. Terrell Bernard is a great middle linebacker. Matt Milano, when he's healthy, is great. I got a lot of confidence now in Dorian Williams. I'm talking about like the depth, though, behind that. I was concerned about it, and I was, quite frankly, annoyed this offseason that the Bills didn't do anything. Like, I've been waiting for the Balin Spector upgrade for a while. I've been waiting to see just some overall depth added to this team, and it didn't come. So they didn't do that in free agency. I'm like, all right, well, here's the draft. Again, you don't have to. You're drafting a backup probably. Depth guys, special teams guys who you can develop maybe into longer term starters. Didn't get anyone in free agency. That's okay. Here comes the draft. But then the draft rolls around, and there were several mid to late prospects that I liked a lot, including, of course, Sean Dolak here from UB. But it didn't happen. So not happy at that point either. I'm like, what are they doing? What are the Buffalo Bills doing right now? They not care about linebacker? Do they not know that Matt Milano has an injury history? Do they not know that Terrell Bernard plays a very physical, reckless game and I say reckless in a complimentary way because middle linebackers, the great ones, have to play reckless, but that lends him, especially being a smaller guy, to injuries, being banged up. So I'm like, what are we doing here? What's going on? But I get it more now than I did then, for sure. I mentioned Dorian Williams. Dorian Williams is a guy who, we're not speculating here. We've seen it with our own eyes. He is capable of being a very solid starter in this league. He did it last year. So if something happens to Matt Milano, I'm going to feel okay, pretty good about Dorian Williams stepping in. I'm still hopeful when it comes to Dorian Williams. I don't think this is going to happen. I wish it would have been asked at minicamp this week. I wish I would have sent a DM to some of the media people asking them to ask, because I've been very interested in knowing this question myself. But is Dorian Williams getting any work at Mike, or is he working exclusively at the outside will position? Because I'm hopeful that he would end up backing up both positions. Somebody with the skill set of Dorian Williams who will see the field when everybody's healthy if they're running a 4-3 with 3 linebackers. But aside from that, I think he's a talented player. And if something happens to either linebacker, I'd love for him to be that first guy up. But still, you have Dorian Williams in the fold. And what I realized that, I've known about Dorian. I've thought about that for a while with him. But maybe I've been sleeping some on Joe Andreessen and Olafosio. Maybe Buffalo Joe is, at this point, more than just a hometown, feel-good, nostalgic story. He certainly was last year. That's what it was. The hometown kid, born and raised, goes to UB, doesn't get drafted, doesn't get to sign with a team after the draft, gets rejected at a rookie tryout in Kansas City, does the same thing when Buffalo, gets signed, ends up making the roster, plays in some games, some special teams value. We saw at least a little bit here and there of some of his ability on defense. Going into year 2, the development of Joe Andreessen, maybe he's more than just a feel-good story. Maybe he is, at this point, somebody who could be quality depth, who can, really step up. If something happens to Terrell Bernard, you could trust him to play inside linebacker. Who knows? Maybe Olafosio, who, he didn't do shit last year, but he was also hurt. He's a pretty decent player. I feel like, he's a 5th rounder a year ago last year, although he played a little bit near the end of the season when he came back. But for the most part, 2024 was essentially a redshirt season for Olafosio. So you got those 2 guys. In terms of Shaq Thompson being signed this week, okay, cool, fine. But I'm not counting on much. I know he's the name. I know he's done a lot in this league. He's had 4 years of 100 or more tackles, but at this point, I'm just simply not counting on him really for much. Dude has had major injuries now in back-to-back years. Broke his leg 2 years ago, tore his Achilles last year, and he's, 31 years old now. So if they, and I'm not saying they can't get nothing from Shaq, but if they do, I'm going to treat it like a bonus. But between Dorian Williams and Andreessen and Olafocio, I feel like that's better depth right now. Not maybe in name recognition and on paper, but the way the Bills feel, it's probably, it's better depth than a lot of people are probably giving this team credit for. And I'll tell you what, this is a team, and I know you didn't ask about this specifically, but I'm saying anyway, this is just a team to me that has some really sneaky, good depth that we just don't talk about enough. I think the offensive line is chock full of depth guys with a lot of potential. Talking about guys like, Van Pran Granger at center, Tylen Grable, who could play guard or tackle. The Bills like him a lot. He had a really promising rookie campaign. Alec Anderson, the 6th offensive lineman, he could play in the interior. There's some really good depth there on the offensive line. When it comes to safety, I don't think any of the players right now are necessarily great. I don't think the Bills are like loaded at safety, but what I will say is at least they're not razor thin there either. Damar Hamlin, I don't like Damar Hamlin much as a starter, but I like Damar Hamlin as a guy on the roster. I think Damar Hamlin is a good depth piece to have, someone who can play special teams, somebody who will be fundamentally sound when he's got to go out there on the field. I'm good with that. I like Derek Forrest. I think he was really good with Washington a couple years ago, kind of got phased out by a new regime last year. I think he's going to have an opportunity to make this team do some things. So I think safety is a really good position where the Bills got a lot of depth there. Tight end, you got Dalton Kincaid, you got Dawson Knox, and you don't have Quentin Morris anymore, but Jackson Dawes, I'm telling you, man, this kid's going to be a pretty good tight end. I'm telling you right now. Ray Davis, that is a hell of a running back 3 on this football team, ain't it? What a nice luxury to have a guy third on your depth chart as promising as what we saw from Ray Davis last year. And then you go to wide receiver. And maybe it's Elijah Moore. Maybe it's Curtis Samuel. We'll talk about both of them in a few minutes, by the way. One of those guys is only going to be wide receiver 5. If they both make this team, if they're both on this team come week one of those guys, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, 2 pretty decently accomplished football players, they're only going to be the 5th receiver on this team. There's one sneaky, consistently good thing about the Buffalo Bills in recent years, and including, there's more than one, but I'm just saying one sneaky thing that's been really consistent, not just this year, but I feel like for the past 3-4 years now, including this year, is I think the depth on the Buffalo Bills is really, really solid. Anyway, all right, let's take a quick break, come back, and we'll get to some more questions. Some good ones, too, coming up right after this. All right, we are back here with our Friday pod bag. Some good ones to start. Let's keep it going here. Willie Wanker 8. Who's a Bills veteran not being talked about much who could find himself in trouble this summer? When I first thought about this, my first thought was DaQuan Jones. Like, DaQuan Jones might be low-hanging fruit. DaQuan Jones might be the easy answer. But as I thought about it more, I think about Larry Ogunjobi being suspended for the first 6 games of the season. And then you see Deion Walker, who I expect to be brought along really slowly. And they're doing that right now at camp. I mean, he had a bad back last year, which could be a reason why he lasted all the way to the 4th round before the Bills traded up. But he's not getting a lot of reps now. I think they have a very specific plan when it comes to Deion Walker. I do not think he's going to be rushed onto the field. He's not going to play much. He might not play at all early in his rookie season. So between that and Ogunjobi being in the can for 6 games, I think that DaQuan Jones' job is safe to start the season. My first thought, again, when I went back, I'm like, well, you can cut him. You can save a pretty good buck here, do some cap management things. But, this is a championship caliber team. You're not going to cut a veteran when you don't have somebody there who's going to be up to the task. And at least to start the season, DaQuan Jones should be on this roster. Now, look, maybe Ogunjobi becomes back after 6 weeks. Maybe by week 6, Walker's showing you a lot more. And then maybe at that point, if DaQuan Jones is not performing and he's just pedestrian out there, you move on for him. But right now, I think he's safe. So the guy that I'm actually going to go with, I mentioned him briefly earlier, kind of a surprise, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Curtis Samuel. I think Elijah Moore is going to be the real deal. More on him in a second. I think if Elijah Moore is the real deal, I think that Curtis Samuel could be in a little bit of trouble right now if he comes out, training camp next month and just has a ho-hum kind of training camp. And look, we just got done with mini camp, all right? These are dudes in T-shirts and shorts. There's no physicality, none of that going on right now. But you hear about Keon Coleman making some plays. We've heard about Elijah Moore looking really good. You hear about, like I said, with Keon, there's just a lot of good things they're talking about with the offense, the media this week. I haven't even heard Curtis Samuel's name. That's what I mean by ho-hum. If he goes to St. John's Fisher and Elijah Moore is shining and Curtis Samuel's just, he's all right. He's out there, just another guy. As much as people don't want to admit this, we do on this show all the time, though. Special teams matters. Special teams matters. And with Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer, those are your first 3 right now, and that's pretty much locked in. That's 3 guys right there who don't play special teams. So then you add Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore. That's 5 receivers. If they both make the roster, that's 5 receivers. None of them really play special teams. I can't envision, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that right now I cannot envision a Bills roster with 5 receivers where none of them play special teams. Like, you would absolutely have to carry 6 wide receivers purely to have at least just one who can play special teams, whether it's a gunner, whatever position he plays in coverage on both sides of the field, kind of core 4 special team type player. You don't have it with your first 5. So you'd have to carry 6, somebody like Shavers or maybe Virgil, just to have that guy. It's why I continue to think, laugh all you want, the whole Matt Collins funerals that I have for him every week on the show, here's another one. I still think it was a mistake to not get Matt Collins back in this building. For no other reason than that. Even if offensively his role was diminished from what it was last year, which you would hope to see because you want to have more talented offensive players than Matt Collins. Matt Collins just brought an energy and a physicality on special teams that I feel like they're going to miss. Anyway, back to what I was talking about with Samuel. 5 receivers, none of them playing special teams, your top 5. I don't know if that works. Like, I can see a scenario if they keep 6 where Shavers and Virgil both make the team. So how would that work? And especially if Elijah Moore makes the team, which I think he will. When it comes to Samuel, he did show some promise late in the season last year. Slowed down by a foot. I mean, let's be fair to him here. He sort of came on late in the year. Big touchdown in the playoff game against Denver. But I don't know. I don't think he's a roster lock at this point. I really don't. The problem, though, is if you cut Curtis Samuel, you're going to eat $8.6 million of dead cap money just to save $430,000. That's it. That is, if you're Brandon Beane, that is terrible mathing. Plus, that makes him look bad. That goes down as a really bad Brandon Beane signing. If you just cut the dude and after just 1 year, you're eating $8.5 million to save basically nothing, it's a pretty bad look for Brandon Beane. However, easier said than done, but if you're able to find a trade partner, anyone, and you could deal Curtis Samuel, you would be saving over $7 million in cap space by dealing him, and you would eat about 1.7 for this year in dead cap. So if you're looking for some extra operating money, some revenue, there you go right there. I'd be willing to bet that Brandon Beane would practically give away Curtis Samuel to a team if somebody wanted him, if somebody had any interest in him. And I would preface this by saying that the Bills stay healthy at camp, because right now this is a good problem to have. You got potentially one too many receivers on the roster that play the kind of, the way, the style that you want, it's a good problem to have for now. But if somebody gets hurt, then maybe all this stuff's off the table. But if those top four guys, if I put more in the top four, those top four guys all stay healthy, and somebody has any interest at all in Samuel, you give him away right now. And it seems unlikely right now that somebody would have interest in Curtis Samuel. It's a pretty big salary to pay him, but you never know. And especially if a team gets a few injuries at camp, if it's a coordinator or a coach who's worked with him before, a quarterback who he's worked with before, that they have confidence in him, I could see it. Like if the Bills, if I'm Brandon Beane, I would give up Samuel for a 2029 seventh rounder right now. The answer would almost be certainly yes, especially if Elijah Moore continues to look good. Which, speaking of, at King Cyrus 311 says, I think Elijah Moore puts up wide receiver 1 numbers this season. Man, that is a very, very, very optimistic viewpoint there from King Cyrus. But I'll say this, I do think he's the real deal. Keep hearing from media folk now how impressive he's looked this week. And when you combine that with the fact that he's had some success in this league, playing with some really shitty quarterbacks, there's very fair reason for optimism. Like, I don't want to get, especially when I got to deal with Joe from Queens every week here on this show, the last thing I want to do is get excited because I see a 10-second Sal Capaccio or Alex Brasky or Dad Brown clip of Elijah Moore running a crispy route and catching a ball in stride and looking really fast doing it. I don't want to get excited about that. But kind of can't help it right now. Because he does, from what I've seen and from what they're saying, looks really, really good. I don't know that he's going to be a huge breakout star, so to speak, but I do think he's a lot more than some of these other guys who were something at one time and come to Buffalo, and you think maybe this is going to, reignite their career, jumpstart their career, and it quickly fizzles out. I think he's more than Tavon Austin a few years ago. I think he's more than Chase Claypool last year. I think he's more than Andy Isabella over the past couple seasons. Some other additions, that felt promising in the spring, but like I said, completely faded by the time camp really got going. I absolutely think Moore's sticking around. I'd be stunned if Elijah Moore doesn't stick around. And wide receiver 1 numbers, like you said, that's a little far-fetched to me. I don't think he's that guy. But 500 yards, maybe a ceiling of 600, 650 yards, maybe he becomes a top 3 receiver. Gets an opportunity. Maybe somebody goes down, who knows? But I could see with opportunity 500 to 650 yards, and I'd be very, very happy about that. Again, the speed, the separation, the ability to get to levels of the field. I think that Elijah Moore is going to go down when this season's over and we have a conversation about some of Brandon Beane's hits and misses. I would not be surprised at all if Elijah Moore is one of maybe even, who knows, the biggest hit that Brandon Beane strikes this year. At Philip Gibson, 9091, regular on the show. Sean McDermott stays. You fix the defense. Hopefully the defensive draft picks hit, and we'll look back on this last draft and say this is what made them champs. McDermott doesn't get a lot of credit for the culture of the team. All right, thank you very much for that, Phil. Phil, a regular YouTube commenter on the show. Thanks. I disagree. Well, hold on. I disagree with the last part. I think Sean McDermott gets a ton of credit for the culture of the Buffalo Bills. And it's warranted too, by the way. Like, even the critics, the sharpest critics, the haters even, who blast away at Sean McDermott, everything he does in terms of coaching, the X's and O's, the blunders, not being ready to play in the biggest moments, the team's defensive collapses when they get eliminated in the playoffs, all that stuff. Even those haters, I think, give credit to Sean McDermott as being a really good culture guy, giving him credit as the guy who came in and stabilized this franchise, 17-year drought. They really needed a guy like Sean McDermott really, really bad. So that part I disagree with. I do feel that everybody compliments Sean McDermott for the culture that he's brought. And it's deserved because he's earned that. Let's be clear about that too. As far as fixing the defense, well, when it comes to this defense now for 3, 4, 5 years, defense has been good. Everything has pretty much worked with this defense until it doesn't. It works until they hit that wall, that proverbial wall in the playoffs at some point. To your point, hopefully this draft class ultimately does become a big difference in turning that around. Max Hairston is going to be a starter sooner than later, if not week 1 of his rookie year. But you expect him to be a significant starter and contributor to this team. That's why you take him in the first round. Now, I know a lot of people, because he has a little bit of a hammy in his first week of minicamp, and people are already comparing him to Kyrie Elam, but those are idiots. So a lot of hope there for Max Hairston. I think TJ Sanders is going to play some meaningful snaps, some interior pass rushing right away. Landon Jackson is absolutely going to have a role on this football team. He's your next AJ Epinesa with the ceiling to be more. That's not a bad bar for a third-round pick. I think Deion Walker, we talked about this. I think he's going to be brought along really slowly, but I do see him as like the heir apparent to DaQuan Jones. There's a reason why the Bills moved up in the 4th round to get him. They like him a lot, and they saw what he could do 2 years ago, where Brandon Beane said, had he come out 2 years ago, he probably would have been a first-round pick. I don't know if I believe that or not, but I certainly don't think he lasts till the 4th round. Anyway, you got those guys. I also think Jordan Hancock and Dorian Strong are going to be really solid depth pieces who help on special teams. So this really could end up being a very special draft class. But I'm personally just a little hesitant to make any, bold statements and proclamations right now about this rookie defense who hasn't played a snap in a season game once. And I say that because I still have never recovered from getting burned in 2006 when the Bills took Dante Whitner in the top 10 and John McCargill they traded up for in the first round, Ashton Yabouti in the 3rd, Cole Simpson in the 4th. That revamped, reformed defense that Dick Duran, you're going to make it, who was a defensive coach, they were going to become one of the better defenses in the NFL. Absolutely did not happen. Everyone I just mentioned really didn't do shit for the Bills. Just straight up. Kyle Williams was the exception, who had no expectations as the 5th rounder. So anyway, my point was, you got so high on that draft because the Bills went all defense, and you rebuilt the secondary, you added the defensive line, yada, 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 and it didn't turn out to mean shit. There's a different Bills team now, of course, a way better team with a all-world MVP quarterback. I get all that. Still, though, I'm going to be a little careful about this draft, but to your point, you are right. Potentially, they could be the difference of what gets that defense over the hump when they get stuck in the playoffs every year. At JDLE Shoe, just a bunch of letters here, man. He says it's coaching. Josh is a generational athlete with a coaching staff and a defense that just can't rise to the occasions like he can. They say if you want to make a great movie, you have to have a great supporting cast, which Josh has not had up until this point. I appreciate you chiming in here. A little confused, though, if I'm being honest, man. I mean, you say it's coaching, but then you talk about a defense that can't rise to the occasion and that Josh Allen's supporting cast isn't good enough. Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich, Leslie Frazier, they all certainly deserve criticism, and they definitely get it. They definitely get it. But at the end of the day, it is more than them. It's time to expect more from guys like Greg Rizzo, Ed Oliver, at least in some years. Ed Oliver was fantastic in Arrowhead in the championship game this year. But previous couple elimination losses, he's been dead silent. Greg Rizzo was awful last year. Terrell Bernard just been okay. He was okay at best last year, and he didn't play the year before that. DaQuan Jones, another guy I'm talking about here, man. Just guys who, when everything's on the line, they don't play their best. Not to mention Christian Benford, who is an elite corner in my opinion, but he's got to be healthy enough. He's got to be healthy enough to play in these playoff games, which unfortunately for him to this point hasn't happened. So I think you're right about the supporting cast thing. I don't even think that's debatable. But blaming just coaching feels like a cop-out for a lot of the guys on this defense who just simply fall off when they lose in the postseason. Greg Rousseau's getting $20 million a year now, man. That's too much money to be a non-factor in any playoff game. I don't care if it's the first round, the AFC title game, the Super Bowl, whatever it is. You got to be a factor week in and week out. And he wasn't last year. He's not alone, but there's just too much of that. So I agree with you about the supporting cast thing. I'm just not going to put it all on the coaching. Buffalo Bro says, am I crazy for never thinking James Cook cared to be in Buffalo since the moment his name was called? I don't think you're crazy at all. Who knows, right? Who knows? Let me be clear. I have absolutely positively zero credible information whatsoever that James Cook does not like being a Buffalo Bill, that James Cook does not like living in Buffalo, being in Buffalo. I know nothing credible that would suggest that that is the case, okay? I do know by their words and their actions that the Buffalo Bills certainly love having James Cook on the football team. Some players treat this sport or all sports like a business above all else, and that's all they care about. Some are open about it. James Cook is one of them. I think James Cook wants to make as much money as he can while he can. And I think that's his primary purpose. Whether it's a powerhouse team with like the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, or whether it's some shitty bottom feeder in the league. The team to me, and this is my opinion, but it certainly feels this way, okay? The team that ponies up, like let's just say he plays out this year and he hits free agency. The team that ponies up the most money is going to be where James Cook probably goes to, whether that's the Buffalo Bills or whether that's the New Orleans Saints or the Arizona Cardinals, whoever. You get my point. It's about the money. And I don't blame him. Be clear about that too. James Cook is a tough cookie to crack because he doesn't talk a lot. He don't smile too much, at least not publicly. He's kind of like quiet as kept. And he's not talking about his contract, at least anyway. I've had a few interactions with James Cook before, and he's been fine. Very polite, not engaging, but that's cool, man. It's just how some people are. It's his personality. It's his vibe. Nothing wrong with that. For his team to publicly like them as much as they do, though, that kind of says a lot about James Cook. And you see evidence of that. We've talked about this before. He was short of 1,000 yards going into that meaningless regular season finale. But the Bills started him and made sure he got his 1,000 yards. When it was the third quarter of a game, again, meaningless, where Saquon Barkley was 100 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's record, and he did not play a snap for the Eagles in their last regular season finale, the Bills put James Cook into the game so he could get a touchdown and tie OJ's record. You don't do that if you don't care about the guy as a person too, right? So he's very likable, especially in his organization. But who knows, man? Some players just want to get that bank. They want to make that money, and they want to focus on that, and then they'll focus on the team being great and winning championships. Then there's others who just want to make as much money as they can, again, while they can. And if they happen to win, cool. I know that for sure. And there's factors that can make to your point, was he happy about being in Buffalo? Is he happy about being in Buffalo? I mean, there are factors out there that can make a Florida born and raised kid not love Buffalo. The weather, the perception of things to do in Buffalo besides drink beer and eat wings. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that James Cook will want to go play somewhere warm in a city, a city that pops a little bit more when he can. We'll see. But most important thing is I don't doubt his effort. I don't doubt his desire to do whatever it takes when he's on this team and on the field to win. And that's the biggest thing for me. I got no issues with James Cook. I'd never have. He wants to get paid, try to get paid. If you start missing games, then I have an issue. It certainly doesn't seem like he's going down that road. So whether it's Buffalo or somewhere else, I hope he's a great year this year, and then I hope he goes and he gets a huge contract. Let's switch gears there. At Mike Sturr says, being a Sabres fan to me is what I think being a drug addict is like. They are addictive. I love them and can't live without them, even though they are so bad for my mental health. I just want more and more and more, and it destroys my mental. I'm not laughing, although I am laughing. I shouldn't be, I should say. Yikes, man. Yikes, Michael. I get the spirit of what you're saying. I do. I'm assuming that, if you're not really young, I bet, Michael Sturr, I bet you were much happier and enjoyed your life a lot more back in, say, 2006, 2007, because of the Buffalo Sabres than you do right now, my guy. At Sabres 1970, desperate times call for desperate measures. Move UPL, get a legit number one goaltender, package UPL on 9th overall and a tier 1 prospect for it. Goaltending is killing, with a bunch of G's, killing us. Offense isn't our issue, at least 5-on-5. Fire the assistant coaches. They suck. Bring a heavy, strong, shutdown defenseman. All right, good stuff there, man, but I don't want to talk about most of it. Most of what you said, not going to talk about today. Not because you're wrong, you're not. But we will kind of be talking, we have kind of talked about it for a while now, and we're going to be talking about it a lot more over the next couple weeks. But one thing you said stood out to me. I love the goalie stuff. Well, some of it anyway. Like, I don't think you move UPL. I think his contract, although it might sound a little bit pricey, but I think his contract is fine. I think it's team-friendly enough where he could be your 1B or even your number 2 goalie. I'm good with that. But I cannot believe how fans and even the media, content creators, aren't clamoring or talking about the need for a big fish goaltending move. I'm not saying I don't want a Mitch Marner or Sam Bennett or John Tavares on this team, but here's a spoiler alert. None of that shit's happening, all right? To be clear about that. For me, I think you should make priority number 1 right now, literally, trading for a goalie. Trading for a goalie, a shutdown, a great goalie. If you can make it happen, and you offer, like you said, you offered a lot. I would too. Go get you a goalie right now. And so we're clear. I have no idea who that goalie is, right? I'm going to sit there and name out names. I don't know. Okay? I don't. But you got to go get a guy who's going to get out there and steal you games. Like the Sabres would have made the playoffs a couple years ago if the goaltending didn't suck. And 2 years ago, the goaltender was pretty great, which got UPL a multi-year deal. But then the team played like shit. Too many injuries, too. Coaching bad. But this year, the team sucked ass. Or the goaltending, I should say, sucked ass. It was bad this season. Go get you a guy who can get you 6 to 8 points throughout the season that you have no business getting. You didn't earn it on the ice, but you get it anyway because your goalie's shutting them down. 100%. So, by the way, and between Chris Ostrander, Steve Bermel, I'm sure Chad Dominicis will be on the show. I'm going to get some good quality candidates out of them over the next couple weeks. But I do like that point, man. At Ralph Wilson Sr., 3728. It's a regular on the Sunday Night Live shows with Joe from Queens. Anyway, he says, Pat, you trendsetter. Never heard of Busch Light Apple before your rant, but just saw it advertised on ESPN. I just LOL'd. I mean, yeah, at the very least, Anheuser-Busch should send me like a free case of that shit, right? By the way, a week after the whole, Busch Light Apple, Tops fiasco, if you watch the show or listen to the show, you know what I'm talking about. The whole adventure of trying to find somewhere, which took me out to Gowanda to get it. By the way, shout out again, of course, to Gowanda. That's just restocked. It's literally at every store now. I get tweets and Facebook photos or texts every day. Everyone in Western New York has that. It's restocked again, at least for the time being. Busch Light Lime's coming out soon, though. I don't know if it's going to be hard to get like Apple was, but looking forward to trying some Busch Light Lime. At Bill T, 5571 says, all you want to do is run people out of town. Maybe you should leave town. Your content is the waste of time to listen to. I'll tell you what, dude, I'll make a deal, Bill. If you could sabotage my son's relationship with his girl so that they break up, if you can convince my wife that even if she loses her job, she can get a new one in Florida. If you do that, I will leave town 100% and I'll move back to Florida. How about that? At GoBills91, you like power ranking everything. Rank your days of the week. All right, well, we're late in the show, so I'm not going to dive into this, but I'll tell you, Saturday's definitely the top. That's my drinking day. Day drinking Saturday is the best time of the whole week. I would put Friday second because you're heading into the weekend. I work on Friday night still, so it's a long day, but still, I got the weekend to look forward to. So Friday would be 2. Sunday would be like mid. Sunday would be 3. Nice relaxation day, sleep off the hangover, get some good food, shop, do a Sunday night live show at 9 p.m., probably middle of the pack. Thursday, I'd have 4th. Monday would be 5th, not at the bottom. A lot of people would have Monday dead last, but not me. Mondays aren't too bad for me in terms of like job stuff, show stuff, family stuff, all that. Wednesday, just because Wednesday's kind of a waste. And Tuesday's dead bottom for me. I hate Tuesdays. Tuesdays, I pretty much am working from 6:30 in the morning to about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Nothing good ever happens for me on Tuesdays. I hate Tuesdays. So, yeah, Tuesday would be dead last. At Ryan Tongent says, if you don't drink coffee, you don't know shit. I would say I don't trust anyone who doesn't drink coffee, but then I'd be a hypocrite because I didn't start drinking and enjoying coffee till like about 2019. But yes, I do love coffee. And so we're clear. I'm talking coffee being, coffee with some creamer, maybe a little bit of sugar if that's your thing. That's it, though. Not these fucking cold brews, lattes, things I can't even pronounce, whipped cream, name, 5 different things they're called, 5, it takes you 5 different names to name off whatever the frick it is that you're drinking. All that shit, I hate it, man. All that other dumb shit. That ain't coffee. At RR 783-338. Unpopular take, there's no such thing as best. By the way, this is the last one here. He goes, there are no such thing as best fried bar food, whether wings, fingers, etc. There is good, meh, or bad. You cook fresh, decent ingredients with basic competence and serve them hot, and they are good. You can't elevate it to best. You'd expect me to blast this take, too, but I'll tell you, I won't, because it's not entirely untrue. It's almost true, almost. Most places definitely say, I could say they're good, they're meh, or they're bad. I actually agree with that. But there is a best category. You're wrong. There's a best category that you need to include. And for me, the best consists of one thing that elevates them. Like you said, they don't get elevated. They do. You're wrong. From good to great, that's consistency. There's probably 10 to 25 places that if I wanted to right now, I could rattle off the top of my head that on any given day you go there, those wings are going to be as good as you can get anywhere else in Western New York. Like legit. But the problem is, if you go back to that same place a week later, you may get a polar opposite experience. Like too many places have cooks or methods on how they make their wings that vary too much. And you don't know what you're going to get. That keeps the good places from being great. The great ones, you know what you're getting each and every single time. 9/11 Tavern, Bar Bill, Adolph's, Kelly's Corner. You go to those places, you're going to get the same wing every time. You're going to have the same experience. If you love them, you're going to love them every time. If you don't, you're not going to ever. Sunny Rides is kind of getting to that point too now. Handful of others as well. The consistency is what puts them on that highest level. So that's why I feel like there is a category for great. And that consists of just being consistent. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this show. This went way longer than I expected to, man. Wow. All right, but they were fun. Good categories, good topics, good questions. So appreciate you guys very much. Enjoy the weekend. I will be back on the video side live Sunday night, 9 p.m. Joe from Queens, which, of course, the podcast drops on Monday morning. Have a good weekend. Talk to you soon.